advisors, meeting with some of our members, as well as participating in some of the sessions going on. January 20 through 22 here in Atlanta, SMC3 is one of our alliance partners focused on transportation. Our own Kathy Robertson will be there hosting a session. And now, very important to remind everyone, the annual conference is coming up. We have a new site, a new facility, new operations, March 11th, a new date, March 11th through 13 at the Rio Hotel in Las Vegas, which is now a World of Hyatt property. And it's been extensively remodeled. In fact, an email went out today to hopefully all of you to see that if you book through On Peak through our system with which we're using the NRF system now, you will be given an upgraded room in the newly refurbished Ipanema Tower. So please make sure you're doing that. You should register now. There's an early bird price in effect, and we know there will be over 1,000 people with us in Las Vegas in March. So please go ahead and take time to register using, if you're one of our members, one of your passes to be there. If you're not a member, please just join us. It is the premier event in the world of the reverse logistics and returns industry. Also, we will go back to Amsterdam for the EMEA Summit. We had our most successful event ever this past June. We'll go back next June 25 and 26. We will have industry leaders from Europe, the thought leaders and leading members and leading third-party service providers, solutions partners, and that's always a great event, great for networking, great for hearing new ideas. And finally, we will be repeating the Leadership Summit. This will be our 4th year coming up. We're moving to Dallas. One important aspect of the Leadership Summit, in addition to the networking time, the dinner, no expo hall, let me reemphasize that, it is strictly time together with the best of the industry, and that it will be September 3rd and 4th. We will finalize the hotel this month. The dates are finalized right after Labor Day. And as I said, we are in the process of finalizing 2 facilities that will allow tours. Some of our member partners have provided that in the past, and we look forward to having that in the future. The committee meetings are the member benefits, one of the many member benefits that should be on your screen right now, and it talks about the Wireless Mobility Committee, the Consumer Products Committee, Recycling Committee, the Standards Committee. We have a European committee that meets quarterly, and the Women in Reverse Logistics Committee that's open to all of us, even the men. Anyone in the community can attend the Women in Reverse Logistics quarterly meeting, and you can see the upcoming dates. In addition, the website provides that on the screen for you, such as the month that just passed, the month of November, all the events that happened there. Other additional benefits for being part of the RLA as a member versus today, we are all community users. These are special events we do for everyone, but the benefits of being a member include passes to our events, being listed in a directory online of service providers, participating in the industry committees, the magazine and newsletters. That is the most information you'll get for the RL industry and for the returns industry on a regular basis. The magazine, the newsletter, all focused on our industry, giving you ideas, solutions, references, benchmarking, and so on. We have had RLA outsource in effect for some time. Major companies like the Walmarts, Targets, Philips, LGs, Samsungs of the world have used it to find network providers. And it's an anonymous RFI that goes out to our community and allows you all to bid and participate in an opportunity. And a lot more opportunities, of course. There will be a short survey that will pop up right after. Please take a couple minutes to go through that. It's helps us, again, provide industry information about returns costs, return rates, and so on. That's the returns index. That'll also pop up for you, giving us some more information. And today we're going to switch over. No, we're not switching over to this. I'm going to get rid of that slide. That's the wrong slide. I'm going to switch over to all of the screens here. And I see my other panelists have arrived. All right, and I'm very proud to have with us today some very important guests to talk about collaboration in reverse logistics operations. I'm going to turn over, and I certainly am going to go ladies first. Julie, if you would, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julie Ryan. I'm with HP, and I lead the North America returns operations end-to-end organization.
Great, thank you. Avi, first time with us on a panel. Please go ahead and say hello and tell people a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Avi Prakash. Thanks for having me over. I work with Walmart. I lead the tech side of things for reverse logistics for Walmart.
Great, thank you, Avi. Welcome, Chuck. You could turn a little light on yourself. You're in shadows there, but everyone's seen you so many times, Chuck. I'm sure they know even without a bright light in your face. Oh, Chuck's muted. There we go. Yes, go ahead.
CSO for Return Pro, offers a full suite of return management solutions in the industry, and been with the RLA, Tony, since I think inception. But
the beginning, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't give away our age, Chuck. Let's just say that we are seasoned veterans and survived the industry and found ways to make a difference and good stuff like that. So, again, very proud to have all three of these companies are board members. We have an advisory board. That's one of the pages on our website you can look at. You can see that we focus on having retailers and manufacturers, clearly, two of them today. And since I spent 25 years at Philips, I can share the story that, basically we're the people who make the stuff, we sell the stuff, and we have to deal with returns. And fortunately, there's companies like many of you, third-party solutions providers like Chuck and Return Pro and others who come up with answers. And those answers take us into the space of what is collaboration all about? What does it look like? And I might slide over to you, Chuck, first, because when we go back 25 years or so, I hate to say that out loud, Chuck. When we go back that far, many companies were doing it all themselves. And you took some steps for collaboration at Walmart back then. So maybe that'd be a good place to start. And we'll switch over to Julie and Avi about what does it look like today. But what does it look, why did it happen?
Well, I think, Tony, and again, it's great to be on with everybody. I think part of the issue is that, there's, whether you're a manufacturer or retailer, there's, again, there's still limited resources that you can provide to solve solutions. And, Tony, we've talked about it for years, is that returns management tended not to be high on the CapEx side of the business. It just wasn't a lot of money allocated to it. So if you were going to do it well, it's always been important to go out and find solution providers that you can partner with to figure out what can you do yourself reasonably well. Walmart did and still does supply chain extremely well. And so there's a lot of functionality within the supply chain network that could be leveraged. But when you start getting into a lot of the nuances that exist in the returns management, whether it's the re-commerce side or any of those, that there's a lot of third-party providers out there that do it extremely well. And I think the important thing for us back then was, again, recognize what we do well and then leverage what we don't do as well with third-party companies to try to get an optimized solution.
And Chuck, that's a really good explanation of where we were back then.
Yeah.
Julie, you were back there with us. We do have a high-tech company. And again, some of this is high-tech. How do you solve the problems of the receiving, the software that's needed, the dispositioning? And it's also interesting, Julie, because at HP, I believe you're still within the supply chain family of
Yeah,
operations.
organizationally, yes, we roll up into supply chain. One of our focus in that organization, we look at the SCORE model, which is a new concept and methodology where you talk
Right.
about plan, source, make, deliver, and return. And so return as such is under supply chain. And I like what Chuck said. I think the words I use is core competency. So within HP, we really focus on what do we do well? And there are many elements within supply chain that we do, but then there are those that we don't, and we don't want it to be a core competency. So we leverage those third-party partners who that's what they do every day, their DNA, and partner with them in multiple facets.
Julie, you and I go back a little ways in this industry as well. When I was at Philips, and we recognized it wasn't a core competency, setting the stage for switching over to Avi and what it looks like today. But back then, when we looked for third-party providers, we generally chose the cheapest. And might not have been a good idea, but it's what we did 25 years ago. And we wound up at Philips with different product categories going to different parts of the country. Audio might go to Texas, and televisions might go to Arkansas, and video might go to California because those were the cheapest bidders. And nobody did the whole math, the end-to-end review of how much are you spending on logistics moving this stuff over there, and is your asset recovery enough better, and are these good partners, and can you do better? And we've all learned a lot since then. And Avi, appreciate you being relatively new to the RLA side of it. And if you'll share with us, what does it kind of look like now a little bit today? You're currently at Walmart. Chuck and I go way back to the Walmart days, but you are currently there. So what is good collaboration looking like today?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, right? Like, it's very interesting to see kind of, you mentioned looking at the entire picture. That was a light bulb moment for me, right? Like,
Yeah.
always being at the forward fulfillment. I think in forward fulfillment, the math just works, right? It's like, what's your ROI? But I think in returns, the thinking needs to flip. It's like, how much less of money can you lose?
Yes.
Enterprise-wide,
Yes.
right? Because in returns, usually it's a write-off at the end, and especially like a large enterprise like Walmart, it's like, oh, why do we need to care about it? But if you like change the mindset of folks to say, okay, it's not how much we're getting from this, about how much less of a money can we lose, and that's why we need to put in those efforts to kind of reduce that delta. That's what seems to be. And in terms of coming back to a question as what collaborations, right? I completely agree. Like, I know Chuck and us do a lot of business together, and there's a reason for it, right? Like, they're the best at what they do. But where we do is recognizing what is our strengths is and what our weaknesses are, and playing to our strengths with the same mindset that I just outlined, where how can I make or lose less money for Walmart as an enterprise in terms of percentage value,
Now I
or
will
in terms
use
of
the
even
Excel
absolute
to
numbers, and then leverage the strengths of some partners that I could do who do some of the things that I don't have core competencies in, and work better with them.
Avi, that is extremely well said, especially the part about, and Chuck and I have had this discussion, and Julie, for years. It isn't about making money in returns. It is about reducing losses, and that's so important that we keep saying that. And Chuck, I'm going to switch to you in a minute, but I do want to reemphasize my experience at Philips. I came out of sales, everyone. That was my life, sales and marketing. And going into returns and having to stand in front of the CFO and explaining losses was beyond my core competency. I was not a financial person,
shown here,
but then
the
I
decision
learned
metrics,
to
the
work
best
with a
and
financial
what
person.
each
I tell the story about, he had to be my drinking buddy because we had to understand the CFO
now
was taking us to task because the
STDEVA.
inventory
This is
was still landed at a cost of the original incoming shipment. And in electronics, for example, and in many other categories,
The
Avi and
formula
Julie,
which
we
is
certainly
used
know this,
in
in
Excel
many
to
categories,
calculate the
prices
standard
drop every
deviation.
year. So if you've got new
You need
inventory
to
that's
select
cheaper than
the
your returned
range,
inventory cost is sitting there, you're going to lose every
brackets
time. So you
closed,
need a good
and
finance
enter.
person. And
Now
Julie and
in this
everyone, you're
way
shaking
you
your heads because
can
you know
get
that's
the
part of this,
value of
right?
standard deviation
That's a big
for
part
the
of this.
first
So,
criteria or values
so Chuck,
of the
let's come
first
back to
criteria.
you because you
Now you can simply
brought this
drag
question idea about
and get
the key
the
differences
other standard
between
deviation
a
values for
collaborative
each
approach
criteria.
to a transactional approach.
Now these are the
And I think
values
it's a
of
good one
standard
for all three
deviation
of us,
sigma
but
j
please
for
go
each
ahead and start
criteria,
that one up.
which we have
And
calculated
going back
using
to,
Excel.
it's important to recognize
Now,
things
next-
like the core competency, figure out those that can augment what you need to do, and you contract with them.
Yes.
But a lot of that in the industry today, Tony, whether you issue an RFI or RFP, is I go out for pricing, I get a price back, I award the contract, and that's the nature of it. That's not necessarily what I'd see as collaborative or the partnership approach. Where I'd love to see the industry go more and more to is truly a partnership where you have shared goals, you have shared metrics, you go out and say, hey, we're going to go do this, and then we're going to get this give and take to say where are the things that can be improved, what do we need to do to improve them, because everything, when you go out on these RFPs, a lot of it's fixed. There's a lot of, and when you go to these third-party providers, they're going to put their margin in, and so it tends to be
We need to calculate
more and
the
more transactional. And kind of you get what you get. It's just that I went out, they had the best pricing, I gave it to them, and then we go through a 2-year contract, and I go back out and again and do it. There's a lot of that in the industry today, and I see that more as transactional. It says, hey, this is what I need you to do. And that's fine if you're doing re-commerce or you're buying excess goods. That tends to be transactional. Where the real collaboration and partnership comes in, and obviously that's kind of what we have currently with Walmart, is saying, hey, let's go. Let's talk about let's talk about what are the next step. What are the things we can do? What, as opposed to just putting finite in an SOW and say, that's what we're going to do. That's what we need you to do. Ours is, let's talk about it. Let's do a review. Let's go in and say, hey, here are the next things. Here's where it's falling short. Here's where the things can be improved. And here are other ideas that we have. We talk about, and hey, what kind of solution can we come to? And it's, SOWs are always going to be limited to what you know today. And that's part of the challenge is that, and then most retailers can't go beyond 2 years. So, that whole collaborative approach takes time, and it's somewhat antithetical to the way people contract things. And I think if you can get more to this partnership collaboration, the results are going to be so much better.
Absolutely. And Julie, you've lived through the change of transactional approach to collaboration approach. I used the example of the craziness at Philips. We went for the lowest price and regretted it at some point. You've lived through transactional. In some ways, that's a race to the bottom sometimes, Julie. But could you talk about the transition at HP when you were transactional and now you're collaborative?
Symmetric metrics will be n cross n metrics depending upon the number of criteria. Now here in this example we have 4 criteria.
We gotta address
so the
turnaround
symmetric
time,
metrics will
aging,
be a 4 cross 4 matrix.
focus with shift, and here's what
now,
we need you to do. But then when you step back over time and evolve, cost, we just talked about it. Costs are so key in this industry. And we've got people who have best practices that bring ideas to the table. So the collaboration is the retailer or the manufacturer is bringing in these third-party providers, not to tell them exactly what to do, but to have a collaboration to benefit both sides with ideas and thought-provoking brainstormings to continue to evolve and improve.
And Julie, the transactional days, in the case of high tech, especially Philips, for example, and HP, transactional for HP meant how fast could you get it done as well, right? Because speed related to asset recovery.
Right, for sure.
But then sometimes speed turns into not the best refurbished products, and you live with another nightmare.
Right, or you restrict yourself, right?
Yeah.
To optimizing, streamlining, correct.
So in your metrics these days, being past transactional, some of the metrics isn't just speed, but it's not accuracy, but it's efficiency. That if 100 units are processed in one day, all 100 units, because you help support the warranty efforts on these products now with the new concept of HP Renewed, you're more engaged in the refurbished goods and the warranty picture on those than previously you were.
Well, no, because even our refurbished product, our customer returns refurbished product, are sold remarketed with an HP warranty. So it's always been, but quality is a key consideration. Mm-hmm.
And that certainly transcends just the transactional approach.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Avi, as we come to you, one of the comments that we've made over the last couple of years in some of these webinars is the fact that, say, a Walmart or Target, the big box retailers, 20 years ago used to return 75% of the goods to the manufacturers, send it back. Some of us have had the fortune of visiting your facilities. We see it stacked up. You know, Philips is in one section, HP is in one section. Every 21 days, you send a truckload out
Now,
or
next we
less,
need to calculate
depending on the
the
volume.
linear correlation between
But that
price
was
and
20 years
storage
ago.
space.
75%
Now,
went
to
back.
find the value of this
Now,
cell, you
Walmart
need to
is
find the
being asked to
linear
keep
correlation
most of
between
the return
price
goods
and
and do
storage
something
space,
else.
which can be
So
calculated
talk
using the
about
formula
some of the collaboration that has to happen when you flip the switch like that
CORREL.
one. And
This is a syntax which
75% of the
need to be
goods that are
used.
returned is
Now,
now
between
Walmart's
price and
responsibility
storage
to do
space, you
something
need
with.
to select
That's a
the
different kind of
values
collaboration.
in the
Can you
price
talk
column,
about that one a little bit?
comma, and all the values in the
Yeah, I mean,
storage
from
space column. Brackets
what
closed
we can
and
add, it's all
enter.
about
You
adding
will get
value,
this
right?
value.
We can add value
Similarly,
to our
for
customer,
storage space and
or
price,
our
this will
vendors
be
rather, on whatever they need. Now we have to be, yes, we want to send it back, but we also,
first select the
at the same time, be respectful of what they need and say, okay, if they
space
don't
column.
want it back, then it's a
Brackets closed
win
and
situation for
enter.
us to
You
say
will get
how
this
much money
value.
we can make.
Similarly,
out
for
of this, right?
storage space
What's the
and
best mode of
price,
transportation
this
for
will
us.
be
At the same time, respecting all the rules and regulations. For example, like disposing hazmat, treating them hazmat properly, right? You don't want to take a battery item and then put it in trash. That's not valid either. So we've got, so that's where like I see Chuck in here. That's where we partner with
values in the brackets.
folks as Chuck to
upper
see,
diagonal
okay,
element
which
of
programs
the
or which
matrix
products
will be
can
same as
I
the lower
maybe
diagonal
leverage their
elements.
infrastructure
So
that
you
they
need
have to
to
kind of help
calculate
me
these
and them
5 values
dispose
only.
them right and make the
Equal
right
to
business case for it to to financially be better off, right? Because that's something that we have. But at the same time, like I said, we also partner with other folks like compliance related stuff where safety is not a second priority for us. Safety takes precedence over everything. So again, this goes back to our original point of what Walmart does best is to be flexible to the customer to handle products or even return products, whatever they need. And we have designed our systems in the back end, leveraging collaboration such as Chuck and other waste management systems to kind of, help them be like tier 2 or tier 3 for handling those products later on.
Yeah.
Avi, that's a great point too. And the recognition, the manufacturers are trying to push more on the retailers for various reasons, ESG scores, things like that. But there's another factor too that Chuck and I have talked about over the years, and Julie, you live with it too. A crazy amount of what gets shipped back, there's nothing wrong with it. and all we're doing is wasting money shipping boxes of product that there's nothing wrong with. And so I mean, that's the manufacturer's view of let's let the retailer do something with it. And I love that you said, Avi, it's also recognition that it's a secondary market with a profit opportunity of doing something well on that. Chuck, do you see that model happening more and more now?
Yeah, and I think it's out of necessity. To Avi's point, is that back in I date myself back 30 years ago. The returns were the accounts receivable, accounts payable. People would get together and yell at each other about invoices and all that, and it was it didn't talk much about the process. But from where it was, Tony, today, a lot of things have changed. Labor's gone up. Cost of freight has gone up. Everything associated with moving goods has gone up. Yet the model that the retailers and the manufacturers go with, they still want to maintain price point. They want to maintain margins. And so something has to give in the process, because you can't do the same thing. And Tony, we've talked for years, is the transportation people are the only ones making money in the returns business. So if you touch it more, you put it on the road more, to the point that that Avi and Julie are making, you're trying to not lose as much. You got to figure out something different in the process. And what happened over a course of time is manufacturers were pushing back. So said, hey, if you want to maintain all these things and maintain your margin, then you're going to have to keep the product. And so it was more just saying, hey, I don't want it, you keep it. Where I see it going now is, again, more and more talking about how do we as a vendor or a manufacturer and a retailer, how do we partner, leveraging what a retailer can do with the secondary market, or even associated refurbers, to, again, move it less, recover more.
Absolutely. And Julie, coming back to you, you've been at this a while. You've seen good examples, poor examples of this kind of collaboration. Without naming names, can you give the attendees, all of our community, some ideas about good examples and maybe a couple of poor examples that might come to mind, where collaboration has worked well and where it's worked less well and you've had to make changes?
Yeah, the ones that I want to emphasize are the ones that are the good ones, right?
Of course.
So it is where do we have the opportunity to optimize the network, minimize touch, and streamline. And what we find is setting a an SOW, as Chuck referenced, just to meet the standard expectations. Everyone is representing a brand, and that brand is important. And so there has to be expectations set. But then having good business governance is been a big benefit of us, where you have your daily, weekly cadence of just focusing on the operation and the operation results. But then you have good collaborative meetings on a monthly, on a quarterly, and an annual basis, where you're refreshing, what are we trying to accomplish? What can we improve and benefit? That has been extremely value add to us, is the best example of a good partnership.
And Julie, you're describing yourself in a role that's changed as well. It's not just about managing the returns that come into the building, it's managing relationships. And you talk about those regular meetings, and I know that you've moved to have quite a few of those on a regular basis, like you said, and that's so important. Avi, the industry collaboration, you know some of the good partners. Are you at a point yet? Have you done it long enough to think of some good examples of collaboration that you want to share with the community? Or without names, if you know of some things that haven't gone well and you want to advise people to stay away from, like I gave the example of don't pick 5 different refurbished partners around the country because it costs you a lot of freight. Chuck's completely right about that. It is always the freight companies making the money. But Avi, from your side, can you think of any examples recently, or we'll?
I mean, I think the partnership between Walmart and GoTRG previously, what Chuck, I mean, I see Chuck nodding his head. It predates my time, right? And we've got a pretty good working relationship. I mean, I can't think of a better example. In fact, our working relationship is so good. We've kind of oriented our operations to kind of, cater to how they run their operations for the fact of streamlining some of the fat that we can get in terms of logistics costs and everything, right? They have been a good partner, and I think we have a pretty good open relationship with them. But I can completely see where, I mean, if I take Chuck out of the picture, and if I had to start new and kind of start dealing with, take the traditional approach of, okay, let me go with A, B, C, D, and pit A against B for me to get the best price. It's probably, I mean, I might be gaining in that particular instance of maybe getting a 5 cents on a dollar reduction in transportation piece, but I might probably be losing in terms of how much recovery I can get, right? So my point is, I think the industry out there, like Chuck, people like Chuck recognize that there are some missing pieces, and they kind of have and they play to their advantage. And our relationship is probably a typical example where we play to each other's strength and have that working relationship established.
And Avi, for you, the collaboration for Walmart has resulted in more engagement in the secondary marketplace than before, with renewed goods, which maybe 5 years ago Walmart didn't do anything with, and now you're starting to do some things with.
For sure. I mean, that's definitely the unspoken advantage of having a robust returns network, right?
Yes.
I want to quote something else that brings to my mind. I came from Amazon, and I wasn't in the return space then. I was heading operations and engineering for the store programs. There was Amazon style. One of the blueprints that we were given is there was no compromise on the ease of like the return points that every store that we established had to have a return counter, because we had a Deloitte study. I think it said the more easier it is for customers to return, your revenue increased by 3x. So it goes back to your point where it's high time that I think everybody else, returns is an afterthought for most people, but the more forethought that we have about returns, you're going to have an implicit benefit in your forward logistics as well.
And Chuck, coming back to you and collaboration, because of some of these ideas that Julie and Avi have mentioned, you made a point of maybe a collaborative approach needs a different kind of a contract structure with the retailers. In days gone by, the contracts were typically 1 year. Why don't you say a few words about that regarding industry standards and changes?
Yeah, I mean, it's depending on what your internal company's governances are. A lot of people struggle to go beyond a 2-year contract. I mean, it's just typically in the industry. If you get a 3 or longer, that requires a lot higher level of attention. Yeah. 1 year is not uncommon. You go out for an RFP, and when you, again, it's just an opinion experience that says when you go on a limited contract, you become very transactional, because there's not a lot of time to evolve and figure out, from the original set of metrics or SOW criteria, how do we improve it? Longer term contracts usually allow you to do that. And a lot of them, there's not a lot of mutual goal setting. You come out with RFP, say, this is what we want. You give us the price, we'll select you. And that's what we expect out of you. And we want to have some metrics. the challenge is that if you can get to a longer and you get with a partner that is willing to be transparent, to outline everything they're doing, to show maybe not full recovery, what your margins are, but even to that point, the more you share, the more comfort the partnership gets, and you can share in the growth, and you can share if things change and metrics change, and the price that you contracted for, say, hey, we're running into some issues that we may not be able to do that price, as opposed to that company losing money, and you can share in changing the requirements of the document. That's really the true partnership and collaboration, all going towards, hey, at the end of the day, you want to drive better recovery and you want to drive a better experience. And that's, I think a lot of companies are out there, that's what they want to do as a third party. The corollary to that, Tony, is if you're just somebody who's buying product to sell it, that's kind of what you operate in. I mean, there's a ton in our industry that are just re-commerce, that are, we term liquidators. And those type of contracts are fine for them and everybody uses them. But really, to figure out the nuances of this reverse space is get a good partner that understands the reverse space and be collaborative and more of a partnership, which you kind of see those as kind of the same thing in terms of the approach and the way you manage the business. Your results, in my opinion, will be a lot better.
Well, and again, Return Pro, formerly GoTRG, that's a major focus about how to improve that collaboration with the partners. And Julie, as I come back to you and Avi, thinking about the kind of services that you need in this space, and this is a question actually from Paige Wheel, I believe is how the last name's pronounced, in the chat box. But I think part of it is, outside of HP's not going to operate a trucking company to move the goods around. You're going to help manage the different operations. How much of the collaboration has resulted in improvements in say the refurbished reselling area? I mean, let's tell the audience that HP has made a major commitment to the renewed space for many reasons. So what services go into making that structure grow at a higher level, service-wise, the things that you need?
Well, and I'm going to answer it maybe a roundabout way.
Okay.
A lot of things are going in my mind, in my head, because I do agree with Avi, and the relationship we as retailers and manufacturers have with our suppliers is super important. And to Chuck's point, you don't want to get to short-term contracts. You want to have that long-term relationship.
Yeah.
That with maturity provokes trust, provokes openness. And so we at HP, while we do have put our business out for RFPs, it's not often, because we have gotten to where we have very, very mature relationships with our providers. It is always good to test the market, because there are very good proven multiple vendors that are members of this association. So you don't want to be just so set in your way and not look for change. But yeah, where we have embarked this past year, the focus on returns have been the devices that we sell. We have an invoice with, we have warranty support. What we're looking at now is expanding to the second life, to where all the companies that are using HP as their employee units, once you get a refresh, a new technology, we want those old ones back, and we're going to refurbish them and put them out to the market. Big questions come around. What is the grading standard then from a 3 to 5 year old device? Do you want it like new? That's very expensive to do. What level of software and hardware are needed? The device might have been sold with a much lower OS. You need Win 11, for example, today. So do you need more memory? those complexities come into play as we're looking at expanding into Second Life devices. There are iTAD partners that do this every day. So let's talk to them and work with them.
No, that's excellent, Julie. Yeah, excellent example. The complexity of it, especially from the high tech side, and of course, all products are becoming more high tech every day. The joke about computers being easier to operate and televisions not as easy to operate as televisions was solved because now we've made televisions complicated to work with multiple streaming services and technology in them. So we've fixed the world. We've leveled it out. So technology affects us all. Coming back, Avi, on your side, Julie gave a good description about the kind of services that you need, and not changing them quite as frequently maybe as in the past. But from the Walmart side, you're talking about not just products that you put back into the market, but in your collaboration, do you look for a partner who's able to do everything or pieces of it? How connected do you think the return side of the world needs to be in terms of end-to-end solution? Because there's repair, there's refurbished, there's recycling, there's reselling, there's multiple aspects of this, putting it back on the shelf sometimes. Talk about how Walmart's view of those partnerships is right now, where it's going.
Yeah, I think it becomes a little more complex from ours because in our case, reverse supply chain is not just one entity, right? It has it has the first mile, which is the stores. Then I've got middle miles, which are my, consolidation centers, and we are at the last mile. And in reverse, if an unnecessary product goes all the way to my last mile, I've already lost some money, right? Then we are talking about collaborating with external partners whom we can leverage their strengths, right? So the point is, I have to be very conscious of the journey of the travel from the point of injection of returns right at the store to even my return centers, let alone it being, then coming to my return centers, and then I go, to my to suppliers whom we partner with to kind of, get that monetary benefit per se. So one, that means I have to ensure that only required products are coming to my return centers, and of the required products that are coming in, I'm getting my, if I have the option to help me benefit financially, I can make money or route it to the right customer that they're going. So that would involve both internal collaborations and external collaborations. So that's my biggest challenge. So we leverage technology or softwares from our end too to kind of make that decision. Hey, is it truly required for this particular item? Like a dollar lipstick, for it to actually spend 15 cents on a dollar to kind of go all the way from a store to the return center,
Yeah.
and then make 6 cents on a dollar. So I'm already delta by 11 cents.
Right.
Or would I be much better either, trying to handle it at my store itself? Now, if they don't have the capabilities, what's my next best way to do it? So it's a little more layered, and we use, our technology, our systems to kind of make that decision. And then if the juice is worth the squeeze, products, when I get it to my return centers, what do I do with them? So that whole chain and a complex set of decisions requires collaborations both internally within Walmart and also with external folks as well.
Thank you, Avi. And Chuck, this one is for you and I to kind of tackle, because I'm not going to put Julie or Avi on the spot. But Ian Redland and Paige, of course, are asking questions about, so how does a new company get their hands on doing business with HP or Walmart? I'm paraphrasing extensively. There's a lot of value in those discussions, but I know from the liquidation side, we try to encourage our members not to expect that your phone call to Walmart or HP is going to be answered immediately. However, your phone call to their partners, existing partners, might get answered more quickly and a way to begin. You want to talk to that because again, Ian's asking about how does a diversified approach to returns management help companies like HP and Walmart? But again, getting in that door is a long hallway that's got a lot of partners in it already. So I've suggested to many about this other approach about working with companies like Return Pro and organizations like yours. And I see Avi and Julie shaking their heads a little bit, but Chuck, you're the one who can sort of speak to that a little more directly.
Yeah, and it is tough, but it's not impossible. I mean, we started in a similar approach and are where we're at now. And again, it's depending on what is the offering that you have and how does it differ from what is currently being provided. And if the challenge is if you're not doing something that is different than the current company that's going to contract it, then it's tough to get inserted in. But to your point, Tony, going with somebody that says, hey, who has the product? If I'm a liquidator, who has the product? Let me deal with them, provide, and if you can provide some value that is more marketable than what's currently going on, then that can help you get an insertion point into some of these companies. Because they're, when you deal with a company like Walmart or HP, there are so many things that revolve around. You talked about HP Renewed. But then there's things associated with ESG reporting that a company like ours, we have certain certifications, but we're not going to necessarily be the best at processing certain hazmat chemicals that another party could get on board with that capability, depending on what your core competency is. So there's a lot of opportunity out there. It's just depending on what you want to do. If your goal is to supplant a current provider, then you got to make sure that everything you're doing is going to add more value than what they're currently getting.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chuck. Julie, I'm going to bounce back to you because over the years you've done you've done great things for us by promoting the RLA as an opportunity to network, to promote new ideas, get up on stage and talk about what better mousetrap you've built, and you shared that. Again, nice. Appreciate the nice plug for RLA. But is there anything else that new companies like Ian Redlands and Page Wheels, is there anything else that they should be looking to do to find a way to promote their ideas to major companies? And maybe you agree with Chuck, which is that through the existing partnership is one way. But is there anything else that you might want to offer to the attendees that they could be looking into?
Well, if they're new startups, we've got our new startup competition that's been phenomenal, right?
Yes.
I love that session that we've added the last couple of years. So startup competition, I think that's what it's called, but
yes,
that's definitely one you should look into. One of the things, HP has a very mature reverse supply chain operation. But we don't know everything. And so that is why we take advantage of RLA, of the committees, of the in-person conferences, is to pick people's brains about, here's our pain points. What do you have the same one and how have you approached it? So leveraging thought thinkers on pain points, but also just being a sponge to hear best practices. But I think Chuck's right. There are so many providers. You see the exhibitors. What differentiates yourself is really, really important because there are a lot of refurbishers out there, remanufacturers There's a lot of people that manage return operations, the consolidation, supporting Walmart, supporting your Best Buys, to bring all the goods and diverse them into. We have one brand. They're dealing with many, Home Depot and Phillips. And how do you facilitate that? That's an operation. But just what sets yourself apart to bring yourself into the to relevance.
Yeah. Hey, Tony, and to add to that, just if I could, is that, when you look at the NRF numbers, whether you believe the current numbers is going to exceed 800 billion in returns.
Mm-hmm.
When you're dealing with a lot of the major manufacturers like HP or the Walmarts or the Targets or whoever, Costco's, the volumes that they're dealing with are so tremendous that, companies like ours or our competition out there only have a small market share. I mean, so the good news for people who are entering this industry or have an idea is that these large enterprise companies have tremendous needs. And it may be that it's commoditized more, that says, hey, here's a general, but we also have this nuanced thing that we need somebody to do. And that's where your offering can differentiate, or you can focus on a current area, because the volumes out there, Tony, are just ridiculous in terms of the amount that's returned. And so there's even opportunity at store level that, that maybe we don't do, that some others, that if you want to go particular stores and do pickups, that for the low dollar items that Avi is talking about, that may have, you may offer a solution to that. There's plenty of different opportunities there.
Very good points, Chuck, Julie, and Avi. Again, I know we're going to see you in Las Vegas next March. I know you'll be participating in more discussions like this again. As you're looking at the landscape, one of the thoughts is, as it's been a difficult industry software-wise to figure out how to disposition and turn a product fast. Are you engaged in that space where the finance team works with you to figure out and calculate all these costs and say, we can sell this for X on our site, or we should find a partner? Is that a part of your daily life as well?
It is. It definitely is, right? This is where we have to recognize. I mean, the ideal solution would be like somebody to keep monitoring. Like an iPhone 15 is going to be priced today, then 3 hours from now, let alone a week from now or 6 months from now, right? So the challenge is recognizing that it's variable.
Next, we calculate the measure of the conflict created by criterion J
I cannot
with respect to the decision situation defined by rest of the criteria
prices are going to be changing.
using
I'm
this
going to lose my
formula.
head, right? But at
Now,
the same time,
all these values in the
would you
cell
want to turn around that
is
product
our JK
in
value.
a month or two
We
when
need
you
to
know it's
calculate 1
depreciating,
minus our
rather
JK.
than in 6 months down the line, right?
Now you can see that
so
we are
that's where
subtracting the
I think
values
some of our partnership
from 1.
Chuck would help.
On solving,
But
you will
the
get
biggest
these
thing
values.
for me is to ensure, because of how complex our supply chain is, to ensure that I am getting that iPhone 15 into my return center on time and not spending, like I'm not losing a month there when I know $100 phone is already worth $80 in the time that it takes for me to transit it. Now,
absolutely.
So again, comes back to collaboration here, right? I think to Chuck's point, I think the pie is so large and untapped that there is need for us from anywhere. Sometimes we don't even know that there is money left on the table until, like, I go to some of these conferences, or I watch something online and I'm like, oh wait, why aren't we doing that, right? So
well, we'll keep going in that direction, Avi. I do want to wrap us up. I do want to give everyone a heads up that the NRF annual returns report will drop tomorrow. The world's going to hear some big numbers, Chuck. Julie, last words for our attendees here from your side, real quick.
I just thanks thank you for the opportunity, and give us feedback. We're always open and receptive to hearing what you thought went well and what other topics and input you have for us. This is a very relevant topic to my space because we intentionally work with partners in a collaboration model. So I thank you for the opportunity to
Thank you,
be on this
Julie.
panel.
And Avi, any last words for the guests, the attendees?
No, I think this is returns is always an afterthought, a stepchild nobody wants to do. But once you get into it, you'd be like, there are so many opportunities to tackle.
Avi, it's your first time and you're using some of the same language some of us have been using for a while. So thank you. Yes, we are sometimes stepchilds. Chuck, last minute, any words?
Yeah, it's a huge industry. There's plenty of opportunity at the table. I always say that RLA is a great method of getting inserted, find out, understand the industry, just understand from start to finish what all goes on in the process, figure out what your offering is and how do you best fit in that supply chain. And there's a room for a lot of people, and there's a need. It's changed substantially, Tony, from 30 years ago when I first got involved with it. So, and it will continue to change.
We'll keep doing these webinars, Chuck. We will keep getting industry leaders. Everyone should join us in Vegas. I thank Chuck, Avi, Julie so much for doing this, and we do appreciate the opportunity to present to everyone in the community. Thank you all. Have a great week and safe holidays. Talk to you all again. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye now.
Bye.